Hello, this is Pej with Pej Interventions. I'm an interventionist that helps people with drug addiction, alcoholism, and mental health. I'm also a family recovery coach and an individual recovery coach for individuals that want to be on the path of recovery. Today, we're going to talk about a hot topic, which is body brokering. Now, body brokering is not a common term that most people know about, but definitely people that have been in the treatment world have either heard the term or know about body brokering. It is another version of human trafficking, most definitely. There are many different forms of human trafficking, which we've heard about. That's more of a popular term that we've heard about over the years. But body brokering became a very popular topic and subject a little over a decade ago. So from personal experience, I'm going to tell you what I've seen and kind of break it down. So first and foremost, there is a movie called Body Brokers. It is a major motion picture. John Schwab is actually the director. He was a product of body brokering. I had him on my podcast, Pej's Recovery Corner, a few years ago, and it was a really, really good interview. And the movie actually depicts the certain types of players that are wrapped up in the world of body brokering. So you might want to check out the movie Body Brokers. You can find that and see like how the evolution of it even began and what it's all about. Now, from my own personal experience, when I was working in treatment as a case manager, at the time we had a certain type of clientele that would come in, people that were going to treatment legitimately. The majority of them were there because they had a problem with addiction or with alcoholism. So when they would come, sometimes their parents were paying for it. We, after a little while, started seeing that insurance was actually covering addiction treatment to a certain extent. And so we'd see, lots of people coming in and out of treatment that had insurance too. Then something different started to happen. What I noticed was there were people that were posing. Now, these were people who were supposedly in recovery too, but they were posing as hope dealers, people that were trying to help people that had addiction problems, or even people that had addiction problems that didn't even want help. They would go and find these people on the streets. Sometimes they would obtain insurance policies for them. They would pay their premium at first, and then they would get them into treatment because of various reasons. Some of them absolutely insisted that they're trying to help. Now, some of them were doing it for other reasons. They had relationships with various treatment centers or treatment center owners that they would work out in certain deals. You see, when somebody goes through the process of treatment, there's different levels of treatment. There's detox, there's residential, which that's about anywhere from 25 to 30 days of treatment. And then there is PHP, which is partial hospitalization, which is another level of care. And then there's IOP, which is intensive outpatient. And then there's OP. And so that pays a certain amount from the person's insurance to the treatment center. And often there were various treatment center owners and other people that work in the background, in the business background of these centers that saw this as, and so what they would do is often they would bring patients in for all the wrong reasons. The more patients that they could bring in with certain policies, insurance policies, the more money that they could make. So these so-called, third-party hope dealers, which would sometimes have LLCs or sometimes still do have LLCs or their own private businesses, would pose as marketing agents that were basically bringing people into treatment to try to help them. But really what they were doing was they had private deals with the treatment center owners or the decision makers of the treatment center to bring these people, and they would make sure that they stayed very, very close to the client, to the patient that they're bringing into the treatment center. In other words, they would give them their phone numbers. They would say that once you get past this level of care, I want you to give me a call. See, it's the levels of care that are paying, the insurance is paying more during each level of care. So if a person's in a detoxification level, detoxing, as well as residential, that's higher paying. And then when they step down to other levels of care, such as partial hospitalization, it's going to pay less, but it's still a per day rate. So it's still paying. And this is valuable to a treatment center if they're doing it for the wrong reasons. See, a treatment center has high overhead, and obviously they have to pay the therapists, the frontline workers, the doctors, the physicians, the nurses, all of the different people that are working at the treatment center. But on top of that, when a treatment center is making over $1,000 to $3,000 a day during the detoxification period, and that's an average number right there, then it can be anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 per patient. And that could be, in the $100,000 range after 3 months. When somebody's a greedy treatment center owner, again, at that point, it doesn't matter to them anymore that they're trying to help people. At this point, they're trying to line their pockets. And so when they're working with these third-party marketers, they will work with many different types to do whatever they can to fill their beds. Something I do want to bring up too is anytime that there's somebody that's working in a treatment system and they talk about putting heads on beds, that type of terminology is ugly to people like us that are really doing things for the right reasons. These are human bodies. To say heads on beds just to fill your beds to have a higher census and make more money is absolutely ridiculous. So back to what I was talking about. Like next, when these third-party marketers are working with these individuals or trying to help get them the help that they need, if they find that they need to entice them to actually come into their path, because even that can get it to be a saturated field for the ones that are living in the underbelly of the beast, they'll start to entice their clients by telling them that they will give them things to go with them to the center that they choose for them, such as money. Sometimes they'll tell them that they will give them thousands of dollars, sometimes $1,000, sometimes $2,000. I've heard people even entice them with saying $5,000 to $7,000, maybe even more sometimes, because again, they have these personal relationships with the shady treatment centers and they're making a lot of money. Treatment center owners making a lot of money. So they figure if they give this to the patient, they can then put that person in for certain levels of care and continue to have the relationship to pull them out of there and entice them to go to another place. And in that process, they can even put them in a hotel room, a motel room, sometimes get them food, sometimes get them clothes, sometimes get their friend in the treatment too, which that's a 2-for-1, 3-for-1 if they all have insurance that's going to be paying. These are basically ways of dangling a carrot to get somebody's attention towards them. They will pose as people that are truly trying to help them, but the reality of it is they're not helping them, they're hurting them. They're neglecting those people of having the ability to get real recovery, because those people now have it in their mind that I'm not here to get sober. I'm here to pretend like I'm going to get sober so I can get paid. Now, what I've seen over all these years is there are people that actually come into treatment centers and say, when am I going to get paid? Straight up, straight out of the gate. Either somebody enticed them or somebody was working with them, has put them into other treatment centers, and this person is regularly getting paid, or they are made empty promises, or they're just made promises by somebody. I have seen many different types of people get caught up in this type of world. There are people that are actually body brokered without even knowing that are body brokered. There's been people that have come from out of state into another state like California or Florida, not knowing that when they were suffering or they were struggling, that certain individual that approached them and helped them actually wasn't doing it for the right reasons. They didn't have good intentions for them. They basically got them the insurance, and this person was fooled, and now they told them that they're going to take them to a treatment center out in California. Sometimes airplane flights are obtained and bought through the treatment center. There's housing that is free a lot of times. They just want to house the people. They'll give them everything they want: foods, snacks, room, board, rides to meetings, vapes, vape juice, anything, cigarettes, nicotine, all that stuff. A lot of enticements, and that's basically how this thing works. Now, there's also an even uglier side to all of this is usually, and I've seen this quite often, when people live in the underbelly of the beast, the person that's doing the enticing, as in the broker, there's a range of them. Sometimes there's a person at the top of the totem pole that works their way down, and sometimes there's smaller fish that later on, if reporting, talk about the bigger fish and the type of enterprise that they're running. These people, because they're posing as people that are in recovery, aren't really living the life based off of principles. So what ends up happening is often they get a lot of money and the greed gets to them and they end up relapsing. And sometimes they end up dying. And sometimes the clients that they're putting into treatment, because they're enticing them with money or giving them even drugs and providing a space for them to use so that they can put them back into treatment again at a lower level of care, working their way up, or a higher level of care, I should say, working their way down, the client will relapse sometimes. Sometimes the client will pass away and overdose. We're in an era of life right now where fentanyl is at all-time high, and the fentanyl craze has just been totally out of control. There's a lot of these people that are straight up fentanyl users, and they're getting enticed. They're being robbed of the ability to actually have a recovery experience. They're there for all the wrong reasons. The people that are putting them there are doing it for all the wrong reasons. And that is what body brokering consists of. What's amazing is that even over all of these years that I've watched, observed, reported, sat down with people caught up in the game and tried to talk them through it and help them break out of it, there are people in certain arenas who want to be whistleblowers and want to report to law enforcement. And I'm sure some of them do and some of them have, such as I. But they've gone as far as even assuming that I'm doing this stuff for the wrong reasons, claiming that people like me that are interventionists are brokering people in the treatment centers, which it's nothing of the sort. I absolutely stand for doing things the right way, ethically, helping people the right way, helping them get the help that they need. I'm a man of recovery myself with 18 years of sobriety. And when people do come with me to get the help, no matter who they are, what their status is, whether they have insurance, whether they have no money, whether they don't have insurance, my ultimate goal is to try to help them get into any type of environment where they can get the treatment or the help that they need to get off of the drugs, the alcohol, or to address the mental health so that they can live their best lives. Now, if you want to know more information about this stuff, you can always reach out to me at 949-751-7761. My name is Pej. I'm with Pej Interventions, and I'm a family and recovery coach. Thanks.